AI has blown the roof off of what designers can bring to the table, but most of the tutorials today exist for web. React, Tailwind, Shadcn, that kind of a thing. So today's episode is all about using AI to design and build mobile apps. I've got Adam Knopfsinger here, the co-founder of Alma, who was at Apple and Patreon, Dropbox before that. And he's going to give us a behind the scenes of his workflow, including how he uses the Figma MCP, his strategies for prompting in Cursor, and what all of this means for the role of designer. So without further ado, let's dive in.
So if you're going to go build for iOS with Cursor, the first thing you're going to want to do is to just come into Xcode and create a project.
Okay.
New project, very easy. It pops this little guy, and you're always going to be building an app for the most part. So you just iOS app. Next, give it a name. Rid Playground. There we go. I'm going to camel case it because I'm that kind of dork. Give it a space too. Why not? It's funny. It's actually using our original name for Alma was Saber. There's a fun little fact for you. But you want a Swift UI interface. And this should all be set this way by default. I don't think you'll need to do anything on this screen other than type in an identifier, which you might not even need to do anymore. But this is the only screen you'll really see. You hit next. I'll just put this on my desktop. And boom, you have an Xcode project. I won't spend too much time talking about all the sort of Chrome here because it's kind of what you're able to get away from with Cursor. But I will call out that you see that this is doing a quick little Swift UI preview here. And that's how Swift UI was built to work, is it renders really fast previews here. I'm going to close my other things just to make sure that there aren't any tasks that are eating up resources here. There you go. And boom, you have a preview, and you just make this say hello rid, and it updates in real time. Swift UI previews are so sick. It's one of the best reasons to still use Xcode. It doesn't work in large code bases though. So Alma is never going to run in one of these previews. So now let's go over to Cursor. This is all working great. I'm just going to close my Alma code base here. And in Cursor, I'm just going to go File, Open Folder, go to my desktop, Rid Playground. And you just open that folder. Okay. You don't worry about any of all this stuff underneath here. Bing. And now you are in Rid's Playground. So really easy. A huge thing with Cursor that is really smart to do, especially since the advent of Sonnet, is to just have the model take a look at things before it does anything. Be do a little research. Let me know what you think. It doesn't really matter for this project, right? I guess one other quick little thing to know. So I don't know who knows how much about Cursor, but generally you have your files over here. And with Cursor, I feel it's a little bit less necessary to be dipping into these, but just know if you ever need to find a specific file, you can just drill down into these guys and you'll find everything. Here we actually just want this folder, and it shows our only view, this content view. And you can see that over here too. This is our content view. And then your sort of app orchestrator.
If this was an Alma project, what's the type of research that you would want Cursor to do up front? Can you talk us through the strategy behind maybe that first prompt even?
I'll actually just open it and show you one I did earlier today.
Cool.
So we're building this cool new feature. I started this, I needed to actually put a feature behind a feature flag. And I prompted it at the upfront. So I created a new branch. Everything's in Git, right? Tons of Git. I won't even horrify people with Git stuff. Yeah, created a new branch because I wanted to feature flag this work that was already built behind a feature flag so that our users wouldn't see it, but we could test it. And I just said, investigate how feature flags are implemented in the client here, because we're going to feature flag some content to be available for admins only. Generally, you can prompt and say, just go feature flag this thing, and it might figure it out. There's a small chance it's going to build an entire new feature flag system for you.
Yeah.
So I always start, and honestly, I wasn't even specific here. I guess I use the word investigate, but very often I will say, don't write any code yet. Just report back on how we should approach this. Another really good example of this was actually in that one we were in over here. So I'm building what I was alluding to earlier, which is this sharing sort of feature that lets you share your charts. And it needs to be done with transparency and without transparency. So you can export them directly to Instagram, right? So you can see how big this prompt is, right? And I'll show in a second using voice entry because there's no way I would ever type all this, right? So I'm saying, look very closely at this view, analyze exactly how this view in our app works right now, which had sharing functionality built into it, including processes for rendering UI into an image and directly pushing that to Instagram or letting you share it to your clipboard, etc. So I said, go look really closely at how this system is built exactly. The difference is we're also going to take in a parameter for whether this image should have a solid white background or if it should have a transparent background, be a PNG. And like that doesn't exist in the system now.
Okay.
So go out and think about this and tell me what you think. And I actually told it to take its best stab here too. But I think it first wrote me a really nice breakdown of, okay, I see. No, then in the next prompt, it didn't work. And I said, give me some different solutions to getting this transparency to work. So first it gave me a Swift UI solution. Then it wanted me to dip down into UI hosting controller, which this is kind of like an interesting meta point here, which is I know what UI hosting controller is because I know enough iOS development to know that. You need to speak the language to be able to interface still. There's things that the model will do here that I'll catch, or I'll need to be able to analyze different ways to do things and know what UI hosting controller is. And that, this is the Swift UI sort of view that uses UIKit sort of principles. And I'm knowing that this transparency-based solution is most likely going to come from using like UI image versus Swift UI image. Sounds like the same thing, two different things. So I know kind of like the inside baseball on this, and then I'm seeing here, it's getting even more intense. It's like, let's use core graphics. And I'm like, whoa, buddy. So this is like a research-based thing is giving back to me that lets me choose one. And then I chose one and told it to move forward.
A small thing, as someone who's like probably a little bit less technical, that I've had a lot of success doing is just running a separate instance of Claude and having it role play as the CTO and then evaluate the output. And then specifically I'm prompting it to like poke holes and like help me think like what is the optimal strategy, and having that one other layer that is specifically prompted to critique the plan for someone that's a little bit less technical is invaluable. Absolutely invaluable.
That's amazing. So you're talking about you're using actually like Claude on the web or
on the web? Yeah, it's a lot of copying and pasting, unfortunately, is the drawback, but it's been worth it consistently for me because it just helps me avoid pitfalls.
That's amazing. I mean, I use ChatGPT desktop for that, and I actually use it all the time as a design partner the most. I imagine that there's a world we're going to get to where you can have another agent just listening and watching, and you don't even have to go back and forth. Maybe there's even a way to figure that out now.
Somebody, I'm sure, has figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, people are wildly advanced at this stuff. A really simple example here is I would just say, so I'm going to invoke Super Whisper here. So for like people that don't know, the future is talking to your computer. I can rant about that forever.
It's the best. +1. It's the best. I use Super Whisper constantly. Once
you do this, you double your speed and you just feel like it's the productivity boost is unreal. A lot of people like Aqua Voice right now too, by the way. I just really like Super Whisper's design, and I know Neil, he's cool. Shout out Neil Chudley. So I push Control Option commands, and now this is listening to me. And I would say, I'm like, take a look at this code base really quick, familiarize yourself, tell me what's going on. And I hit enter. So that just put that prompt into there. And while this writes this thingy, a good little call out for people that don't know, you have different models here. I run in max mode all the time because there's no amount of money I would not pay to have the amount of productivity that I get in max mode with Claude 4 Sonnet. Each model is different. It's like a different kind of coworker. Like Sonnet had like a regression a couple weeks ago. At least I perceived that. And I tried to switch to Gemini 2.5 Pro. And I was like, this is not a coworker I want to work with. So it's the way it was thinking and the solutions it was giving me. I was not about that life. So I am always on Claude 4 Sonnet Max. Okay. So there's not much for it to know here, right? It's just like, this is a simple app, current functionality, nothing really to know here. It's very minimal. probably created for learning or experimentation. Excellent. So let's just give it like a big broad prompt is like, great call. That is exactly what this is. Why don't you build us like a 4-tab structure, put like a different word on each tab, give each one a different background color, and then we'll go somewhere else from there. And so this is, essentially building basic navigation structure, which is easy to do. But the nice thing is you just don't have to hold all this verbiage and RAM anymore in your head, right? Um, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I would have just written this by hand, and that takes so long. It writes you all this kind of stuff. Everybody has seen somewhere maybe some of how Cursor works here. I just keep all and I Command Enter, as you can see the little thing here. Boom. Oops, I'm not in this view. There we go. So we got it. I'll just run back over to Xcode, and you can see it's already re-rendering in this Swift UI preview.
Cool.
Did not do a good job of creating contrasting buttons, but we've got 4 tabs now. So you can just go ahead and build on top of this, do anything. Like generally when I'm approaching building any kind of feature, so there actually is a feature I was thinking could be crazy today. We could just try to eat it out here really quick and see if it does it. But I will give like a really broad rundown of what that thing is, and I'll let it take its best first stab. I generally already have like a design of where I want this to be in my mind. And it could be that I actually just paste it in here. So I think I actually did make a little thing for this. Check this out. We'll just go here. Yeah. So I was like debating animation curves with an engineer on my team the other day. And I was like, let's just build a little animation playground into the app so we can tinker with it together, right? This obviously is not a design. It's like a wireframe, right? But I'm just all the time going Command-Shift-4, taking a screenshot, holding Control, and now that screenshot's on my clipboard. And I will hop over here and Command-V, and you see that image is in context now. And I bet you it can probably figure this out, but we're going to do a long voice note and see if it can do it. So first of all, add better contrast to the icon colors on the bottom. Maybe make them black or something for now. We're going to create like an animation playground on one of these tabs. Let's put it like a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, because we're designers, at the top of this view. And then I want a set of like 4 sliders or whatever slider amount makes sense to manipulate a spring curve and put a readout of that spring curve somewhere on the screen. And I want a button at the bottom that when I tap it, animates that rectangle in a rotation with the spring curve as it is set via those sliders right now. There's 2 different options for how spring curves are written in Swift UI. Use the one that has 4 values. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, though, Mr. Robot. And so, boom, that's all in there, right?
You're just talking to your computer all day, aren't you?
All day. And like, I am so excited. I think all of this is going to go from being like asynchronous to being synchronous.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to be like 3 years from now. And you're just going to be talking, and this thing is going to be building in front of you, or maybe it'll just be shown to you like when you need to see it, right? It's just like you're talking to your computer or doing whatever, and a view sort of surfaces to give you a preview when you need to see it. But that's definitely what's coming. And I
never thought that I was going to get on this train. Like I totally was like, voice makes no sense as an interface. I'm always going to type, and it just changed in less than a year. I dictate way more than I type now on my computer. Way more.
Oh yeah. What's interesting is, for the broad swath of consumers, they're definitely still not there. We actually started Alma as like strongly voice first. We're like, this is going to be a voice first app. And we built it in such a way that we could learn from how people used it. We kind of presented the options at equal weight, but we defaulted into like a voice treatment. And we saw people going to text all the time. Yeah. And so we're like, okay, people still like text. So we see text, image, and then voice actually in that order as what people want. But I think the consumer market's just lagging a little bit behind. I don't think it's ever going to be completely like a voice dominant market.
I'm making B2B, and I have the exact same story. I was so bullish on voice in and summarized text out. I still am. I think that is the future of work in so many ways. But we led with it. We made it the first class citizen and in flight. And people were constantly just like, "Can I just write like a text comment the old-fashioned way?" I'm like, well, yeah, you can, but like, how much cooler is this? And we're early. We're still early. That's the TLDR.
It all depends on the context too. Like there's some places where for consumers it'll be such a slam dunk. A lot of it will happen at the OS layer too. Like I think you'll see all of Apple's platforms move towards like voice first, especially Mac OS. Like right now, this little Siri thing, not cutting it, their little voice mode. I think there's going to be like better native experience for that.
Agreed.
So quick note, damping fraction. Oh, rude. That is not the one I want. Yes, I like mass damping. Yeah, with the 4 different parameters. Mass stiffness. Yes, use the mass stiffness version. I like having more levers to control with my spring. This is like the most designer thing ever. It's interesting though, because I actually use tools like After Effects quite frequently still. And so I match how I do animation curves to that platform, and the tool that I use there to create springs matches these inputs.
Yeah.
So I generally watch pretty closely what's going on here. Like, I want to be sure you're not going down some crazy rabbit hole. It's not going to happen in this context, but when you're in a large code base where like variable names can get mixed up and that kind of thing, just kind of have to be on top of it. So I'm not going to really check that close. I'm going to Command Enter. We're going to hop over there. This appears to be live updated. So the other thing to call out for folks is like when you're building out a whole application, like eventually this becomes a lot to preview in one view, because this only previews the view that you're looking at, which for us is really just one view right now, but eventually you get multiple pages, and you can view that whole app here if you have the main view of your app selected. But it's going to start chugging along. And this is a really small app, so I'm just going to select an iPhone 16 Pro and builds to that. And this will compile really fast. Alma will take like 3 minutes to build, which I'll show some super cool cursor tools in a second that let you build outside of Xcode, and I think are going to help me be able to speed things up soon. But this is installing. It's just taking a touch longer here for the first time because it's building it for the first time. And then this is going to open up automatically. And you saw in this list too that you can just select your own phone. It'll provision it and it can actually build to it wirelessly, which is really cool. And those are kind of like two different worlds. Like you should just build on your phone most of the time, because all the idiosyncrasies of just random stuff will occur on your phone, and you'll get like a better depiction of if it's working or not. There you go. Yes. Okay, cool. All right. Ugly,
Nice.
right? But we have a thing here. And so I'm just going to hit animate. Let's go. So I'm going to take like, I want it to be slower. So like damp it. Don't really need to mess with velocity. Take the stiffness down, take the mass up. I think this should slow it down. Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
A little bit too slow, honestly. Take it down a touch. That's pretty cool. We should also add in like a ability to choose like how many rotations it does. I really only want like one rotation, so because how often am I going to spin something around crazy like that?
Mm-hmm.
But this nailed it, like out of the box, really basic. Obviously not like a super complicated thing, but you get the idea. Like I gave it a picture of exactly what I wanted. I gave it the broad idea of the structure of the thing. The only thing that's kind of missing here is like the referencing of other things. So in this example, there's not really much for me to reference, but I could say, create me a button component in a separate Swift file and just update that animate button to use that button. And let's make it a purple button. There's some gotchas here that we might encounter, but we might not. This is going to create a simple Swift file. It's going to be a button component. Nice. It created it over there. You see it is showing custom button.swift in green. It's replacing that. Doing great. I'm just going to hop over to Xcode for a second. Oops. That button showed up here. We'll see when it's done if everything's good. Every once in a while, if it hasn't happened in a long time, Xcode fails to recognize the files that are created here. We got our purple button.
Nice.
So it's working well. So what I wanted to call out was like, there's another layer of this, which is like if you have a big code base referencing things so it knows what to build with. And often you can just be like, be sure to use my custom button component in this thing. But you can also add context in Cursor. I didn't mean to click both those. Whoops. Add file to Cursor chat. And you see this shows up here. So if I'm ever looking to have it emulate a pattern of a different view in the app or to pull in components, I might load this up with a bunch of context before I set it off, kind of to do its thing. So the fun thing I was going to show you, there is a tool called SweetPad, which is this little icon here. And you install this via extensions in Cursor. If you just go to settings, you can come in here and just search it and add it. And I'm really quite new to using this, but you can come in here and I'm going to move this little thing. You choose your destination. It gets your simulators. This is just like the list I just played with over in
okay.
Xcode. So I'm going to choose like an iPhone 16 Pro 8.4. Start that simulator. We're hoping that we actually had a failure on the simulator earlier. So let me just do this really quick to make sure that we're not going to have an issue here. I'm going to just run a clean, very simple, Shift Command K. When something's wrong, just run a clean. And then Command R will run that destination again. So running that, it's going to build simulator, build succeeded. It's going to pull up the simulator. Hopefully this app is going to work this time. I've never seen that error that we had a second ago, which is super weird to me. There we go. Okay, cool. So now this could just as easily be running on your phone.
Wow.
I'm going to close this though to show you what's going on behind the scenes. That simulator's gone, right? And I will actually just close Xcode completely, which I personally still use Xcode a lot. It's really nice to tweak stuff in there. I'm very familiar with how the code lays out in Xcode. The auto completion is better for the most part for iOS specific stuff than in Cursor. So I'm going to come down here and just hit this 16 Pro this time. Start simulator. And this is open the terminal. And essentially it's running exactly what that would be run by Xcode behind the scenes. Let's see. Task completed. Go to playground, build and run. Okay, yeah. So you need to have your simulator open. And for anybody that thinks I'm like Neo in the Matrix, I have no idea what any of this is. I'm just you just watch and you're seeing if things are going wrong. And when there's an error code, there's certain,
yeah, I'm just looking for red.
Yeah.
If no red, great.
And, like there's some errors I will definitely know. But yeah, so this is still executing. You can see it's going. Come on, Mr. Simulator, where are you? I think this launched our 18.4, so it's still kind of building in the background. When I was doing this with Alma, it took a moment for it to work properly too.
That's fine. I didn't even know this was possible.
Yeah, I was using it this morning with Alma, and it was working great. So the question is like, is there really a value to it? For me, I'm still going to keep Xcode open most of the time, but I was actually doing some research based on something a friend sent me about the ability to do live injection into the simulator. And this is like way outside the world of what I understand, but apparently you can get like live reload types of behavior in the simulator like you would in that preview in Xcode. I don't understand how that is possible, but I have a video in a library that I'm going to be checking out this evening to see if I can do it. For most people, I think, going back to what I said earlier, it's important to know what's going on behind the scenes before you leapfrog into abstracting those things away, like in terms of iOS development. So,
do you have any advice for designers who are much earlier in the technical game? Maybe they don't have a coding background. This is their first, second, third time in Cursor. What can they do to turn Cursor into an effective mentor and teaching partner where they're actually learning by building rather than operating in that abstraction land indefinitely?
That's a great question. Ask Cursor to just describe to you like what is going on and teach you as you go. And you can also build a Cursor rules file, which I actually didn't implement the one in Alma. My general answer would be ask the model to teach you as it goes. Like I would also say, go take a Swift UI like online primer. There's like a million sites that'll do it for you. That is how I learned iOS development, first by using like Treehouse, if they still exist.
Yeah.
I also pretty sure I did like Lynda classes back when that still existed. I'm sure there's some modern, like very fun way to do it now that is like, spend 5 hours, learn the basics of Swift UI, and then come here and have that language and then potentially modify like your Cursor rules file to just be a little bit more explanatory. But generally, I mean, the model will just explain anything to you if you ask. So it's something you can do here already.
I like that advice. I think it's pretty easy right now. And by easy, I mean quick common, to say, don't take a course, don't watch tutorials, just dive in and build. And it's like, yes, that is true. And yet AI as an amplifier is just so good at taking like the little sliver of knowledge you do have and making it so much more significant. So if you just even have 5 hours of knowledge, it can be a really big deal, especially in those first few instances. So I'm just gonna underline that. Real quick message, and then we can jump back into it. I know a lot of you, like me, are animating in Jitter, so I have some good news. You can now speed up reviews by sharing and responding to feedback directly inside of your files. Each comment is timestamped and also synced across the canvas and timeline, so it's always in context. And you can even @mention people, so it's easy to bring the right teammates into the conversation. It's just another reason why I love animating in Jitter, and comments are officially live for everybody, so you can head to dive.club/jitter to check it out today. So I've been playing with Paper for image editing, and it's pretty legit. They support all of the best models, and everything exists on a persistent canvas, so you can see your generation history and easily fork from old ideas. Just select anything you want, type your prompt, and generate variations. And one of my favorite parts is you can then right-click and vectorize that creation without having to use a separate tool. It's a huge unlock for creativity and just another reason why I'm so excited about Paper as the next great design tool. You can start using it today. Just head to dive.club/paper. Okay, now on to the episode. Given the amount of explorations that you're doing in Figma then, can we go a little bit deeper in like what is the role that Figma plays with Cursor? How are you interfacing between these two programs? Anything about that workflow that we could talk about?
Well, I showed like the screenshot, right? So like screenshots of Figma stuff, that's the fastest way to do it. I would also say like sometimes I will export like a larger artboard and be like, look at this flow, like what's going on here? Try to like implement the structure of this. I mean, it's incredible the amount of uncertainty and slop you can throw at a model and it will generally like figure it out. And if we're just at the beginning, imagine like how much more insight it's going to have eventually. Yeah. So like as we like, let's look at this view, for example. If I'm building something new, let's say that we're like, when it comes to really fine styling stuff, like maybe, you know, the treatment of this card in our onboarding, I could tell Cursor, go and try to make, you know, this card with a border and a diffuse shadow and this corner radius. I find it way faster to just come in and go to dev mode and click on that thing and go down, keep my Swift UI preference set here for the type of code I want, grab that specific code. So like if that's, you know, the corner radius here, like I might just grab this whole thing and copy and be like, use this as an example for how the card should be styled for a simple kind of thing. And I'm just coming over to Cursor at that point and being like, reference this code and style the rounded rectangle to look like this card. And I would have spoken that too, I should say. I do type sometimes, right? For
just a shorter one. That was probably on the side where I would have been okay typing too.
But there's like smarter ways to do this too, which is Figma MCP, which I am very new to, but let's like have some fun with, and I'll show you. I was actually kind of frustrated, Figma, if anybody's listening to me. So I got Figma MCP because I wanted to build dark mode for our app, right? And in this file, for example, I was like, go into design mode here. I have a giant variable sheet, right? So this is where dark mode happens. I had designed this first version of the app, which uses all these mostly tokenized colors, and then you create dark. And then in code, it's pretty much the same thing. Like a color has a light and a dark mode, and that thing kind of flips.
You do have a design systems background.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I should really say, like, there has been no time for this work at a startup. It just so happens that I'm in a place where I have some extra time to like do some of this work right now. And it's mostly happening in the very early mornings. All the beautiful colors that Smith and Diction worked on with us here, by the way. And I was like, certainly Figma MCP. And before I talk about this a bunch, MCP, Model Context Protocol, all it really means is that Figma creates an agent that lives in Figma, and Cursor can talk to that agent, and that comes into here and finds things for Cursor. Maybe that's the wrong way to describe it. That's how I understand it. I was like, certainly Figma MCP will just have access to all variables at all times. From my cursory research, and by cursory I mean early, not Cursor E.
Didn't.
Yeah. Uh, no, you actually have to have something selected on an artboard. So I expected to come into here and be able to say Figma MCP, just reference all my variables, take our entire code base variable set, unify them, do all this. And I was going to like run a background agent to do it too in Cursor. Turns out not so simple. So basically, I'll take this view over here, for example, or sorry, our animation view, and I'll add a token here to this background color. We'll make it background. I'll make this guy our foreground color. Let's do this actually and see what happens too. I'll pull in a button style, button, this big guy, and then we'll just say animate. And so if you come over to dev mode, you'll see if Figma, there you go. So my MCP server beta is running here. Let's just pull that over for a second, and that will be our solution to this problem for now. Essentially, when you open this side panel in dev mode, you will see the Figma MCP beta available there. Quick little setup process, nothing that is hard to understand. I'll hop over. So we're in Figma MCP. All right, cool. So we'll just tap here. Yes. All right. Figma MCP is running. We're good. And the cool thing in Cursor, so you can just come over here, go to settings. I believe it is in online service settings. Is that wrong? Services, no, settings, Cursor settings. There we go. Tools and integrations. And you can see literally by just this little green dot that this is running here, but you need to add it in Cursor too. So you come to tools and integrations, you click add new integration, and this will just turn on like this. And it will give you an idea of the things it can do if you just ask it. So you can also search the documentation on Figma side, and it'll tell you, here's exactly the things that MCP can go do. Like it can find your variables, it can do X, it can do Y, it can try to recreate design and communicate frame like information for you. Off the top of my head, that's what I'm remembering. But I was like, oh, variables, sweet. So we'll ask here in this settings view, what can you do with my Figma file via MCP? And we'll talk you through what it's doing here. So it looks, and it's actually just read the functions there, and it tells you exactly what it can do. Design system integrations, this kind of thing. But what I'm going to do is just say, can you pull in the background color from the frame that I currently have selected in Figma and apply that to the background of our animation view? You'll also notice there's like a green button on that view too. I have no idea if you have the capability to do this, but can you make our button look like that button? Here's a real test.
Yeah, big money.
I'll pull up the content view again just so we see this. Absolutely. So it's running these functions it has, get variable definitions, get code. Says nothing is selected. So let's go check it out. Oh, I didn't have it selected. That is my bad. That's selected now. And I will say it's actually, yes, okay, I selected. My bad, dog. It's selected now. So it's running the functions that are part of MCP on Figma's side, calling get code. And since it's taking time, this is a good thing. So it generally takes a minute to get the code from the thing. It's got the variable defs, get image. It sees the Figma design, background color. It's pulling the gradient from the button. So like I've only been using Figma MCP for like a week and a half. This would start to replace screenshotting for me in like some contexts. I think especially with like creating components, this could be really helpful. Throw a component sheet in and be like, just build all these buttons for me and, create a componentized system.
I would imagine if you're actually using variables, MCP probably gets really valuable too. Because it's always going to pull from the right colors. It's never going to do anything one-off.
So just to read this for a second, background color. Says it matched our button. We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah.
So it's got my design tokens, which is great. It's pulled out some of my fonts. So Command Enter. I will hop over to Xcode. So let's reopen Xcode. We'll open the rig playground, run it in preview. Let's see how fast this preview is. This should still be really, really fast. So I have like a side app that I make that is about tracking Olympic lifting and CrossFit PRs. And I actually run that app always in preview because it's like not a huge app. It's so much better. Like Xcode is built with like an altruistic set of tools that work perfectly for a very small slice of types of things you could build. And when you're building in that slice, you're like, oh,
This
Xcode
is
is the
magic.
best. And then as soon as you're building something at scale, it's just the worst. This is taking a second, so we'll just run to the simulator. There we go. I just saw it open. Bring it to the front. There we go. Ta-da. Wow. Okay, there you go. So this is horribly laid out at the moment, but you can see we made the changes to this card by posting the
Yeah.
code earlier, if you recall. So it has that now. It updated our background color, and it did a pretty darn good job with
I was
this
about to
button
say
too.
that button, I have the untrained eye. That's not my button, but it looks pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah. What's interesting is, and I know exactly what it didn't do here.
Yeah, I bet.
There is there's no such thing as an inner shadow in Swift UI. It's
Okay.
actually something it's creatable, but it's done through, I believe, overlay and a usage of a gradient.
Sure.
And in our actual app, I have built that out into all of our buttons, but it kind of saw that inner shadow and it just went, nope, I'm not doing that. So cool. This is a rectangle now, but you see, it like brought that styling in pretty
It's
great.
awesome, man. Yeah, I mean this even sold me on it a little bit. Like I've kind of dragged my feet on MCP stuff a bit, but if you have a good system, the value of it being able to just repeatedly and consistently pull from that system is probably pretty high.
One other like really interesting thing is like there's still just like some things that there's no replacement for, like YouTube and tutorials on. Like I recently had an example where I had built this like holographic rotating card for like recipes, and I was like, Cursor, go for it. I even sent Cursor some examples. I was like, look at this, try. Nothing. Could not get me something that looked good. And I went off and did a tutorial for like an hour, and then had to tweak it a bunch myself and look at like even at a couple Stack Overflow tickets, and then figured it out. Yeah, I know.
You got that though. You figured it out?
Yeah. It's funny we didn't even end up using it, but I built it. You can see it on my Twitter. It's similar to how everyone talks about liquid glass now. It's like the goalpost always moves in terms of like what is the most incredible and technically unachievable execution. And Apple always moves that goalpost like a little bit further, and they don't give you API access to how they're doing it for a couple years. So, I mean, that just happened again, and that's going to continue to happen with Cursor, like as a tool, right? As it's like becomes easy to do X, Y, Z, like people are going to try to, I should say, as it becomes easy to do A, B, C, people are going to figure out what D, E, F is and like go do that, because there's always this push just to like execute cooler and harder stuff. Whether that's a good thing from a user perspective is like a different question, but
yeah, super appreciate you showing the process and getting into the weeds. You know, it's easy to talk about this stuff at a high level. It's totally different to actually click all of the buttons and see how it all pieces together and get into the details of what the real workflow is. So thank you for sharing a little glimpse under the hood of how you operate.
Anytime. I mean, so much fun, and it's just so unbelievably exciting.
Really
the people that are like dragging their feet on this stuff, not only is that like, don't drag your feet, learn this stuff, like get out there, be up to date, and like do it because it's fun. Like everything you thought you couldn't do before is like, it's here and you can do it now. And over the next couple of years, it's going to get even crazier.
The reality is too, sometimes like you can't do it, and that's okay too. You know, like I was even yesterday, I was like, oh, I got this crazy idea for an animation. I'm just going to try to vibe code it. And like I couldn't quite get there. I tried to do this like 3D split flap animation. And I was like, all right, this is getting pretty low ROI pretty quickly. And it's like, that's fine. But I'm at this really exciting point in my career where I just have this totally unreasonable level of confidence that I could make a thing for real. you know? And I just keep pointing at places. I'm having more fun right now than at any point. And that's something worth celebrating.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of a better way to bookend the conversation. Get excited, guys. It's good. It's a great time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Adam. Thanks for hanging.
Of course, man.